Yahweh.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Midnight Ranting. Are theists justified in believing in God? Where we are putting theism in the spotlight and on trial. Both James W. and I will be giving our little opening statements, but then we'll be switching into an open mic format. Want to be part of the fun? The link for the live stream will be in chat. And feel free to tag me with your questions, comments, and one-liners at Amy Newman. All right, everyone, let the court begin. Are theists justified in believing in God? And what do I mean by justified? Well, I'm asking theists if they have good reasons as to why they hold their beliefs. Because, from my view, one of the reasons why I'm an atheist is because I personally don't believe there are good reasons to believe in a deity. And if this God wants a personal relationship, then my standards are fairly plain. Let the deity come down, shake my hand, give me a fist bump, or even a big ol' hug, and then we're talking. Maybe if things get serious between us, and there's a bit of chemistry, who knows? Sparks may fly. However, this never seems to be the option on the table. That's because theists tell us that God is supernatural. Whatever the hell that means. Supernatural. Now with 100% more natural than the other leading products. Instead, we have to listen to outdated philosophical or arguments, or worse, take the word of the claims outlined in any of the many world's holy books, along with all the baggage that comes with, like the off chance that one's religion thinks gays should be stoned to death. So with that in mind, I'm gonna need some fairly extraordinary evidence. Or, once again, God could just come down and defend themselves. All right. How are you, James? And has Yahweh or any God come by your house tonight?
Well, not yet, Amy, but if they did, I'd be calling the police. But so got to see about half the debate. I'm going to say overall, I thought it was a dumpster fire, not in terms of being personally combative or like a shouting match or anything like that. Just a total lack of substance. So we opened up we got the festivities kicked off with Canadian Catholic trying to pick the brains of atheists and try to delve into our worldview and what we think about things like the mind and things like that, which of course has absolutely nothing to do with defending the case for a deity. The fact that we might have unknowns about the mind, we have maybe even contradictory philosophical views, again, does nothing to establish the existence of a deity of any kind. Now, the topic of this debate was just, is theism justified? And that's kind of good for the theists, even though they're both Christian, because when we debate atheism versus Christianity, they really don't like to talk a lot about Christianity. It really sticks more with the deism, which was with the terms of this debate. So, because it's obviously quite a long ways to go from just saying that there should be a God for philosophical reasons to here's Yahweh, here's my God, worship him, or he's going to kill you and then do mean things to you after you die. So, yeah. And then we got Sal. His shtick is he presents arguments from smart people like him. He's a smart guy who believe in God. And again, really smart people can still believe in really silly things. Just because you're really smart at one thing does not mean that you're really smart at something else. And so these doctors and these smart people, they go through things like abiogenesis, and they see things in there that they don't understand, that they think don't work, and that they think are never going to be solved through science. And they, from there, get to, well, there must be a God, but specifically the Christian God. Talking snake, Tower of Babel, human sacrifice, slavery, the whole thing. It's all wrapped into one shit storm, sold to you at your local church. Buy one, get one free. And yeah. So I'm interested to hear what other people have to say about the debate, about the existence of Yahweh, or any deity, really, even though we spend most of our time pointing out that Yahweh doesn't exist. I'm not convinced that any of them exist. I haven't seen any evidence that any of them exist. So if anybody has any evidence for the Christian God, I'd love to know about it, because as Amy said, we'd love to meet him. Doesn't automatically mean that we would accept him as a God, but at least we wouldn't deny that he doesn't exist. And then he could go around to step 2 of showing himself why we should love him and adore him and want to worship him forever. Like the flying spaghetti monster. And, we were running a little bit late. Amy was doing a sacrifice to the devil. So, yeah. So, but we're actually much closer to being on time than normal. Yeah, Amy. Yeah. Haha. Haha. We got it on tape, Amy. You're on mute still, Amy.
So thank you so very much, James. I agree with a lot of your points. In fact, I'll bring up some of my cards, but we'll get people in, and then we'll all talk about it. So, hi, Simus Funk. How are you tonight?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thank you so much for letting me in. That's really cool.
Absolutely. So tonight, Midnight Ranting, are theists justified in believing in God? What are your thoughts about the debate or the subject in general?
Okay.
Are you a theist?
I'm not a theist. No, I'm an atheist.
Okay. Woohoo!
Hard atheist, that. But anyway, that's besides the point. Yeah, of course, CC and Hogan bound to be a shit show. Obviously, so it goes without saying. Sal, weak arguments as usual. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I like the guy, so hey, there you go.
He's a great guy.
And Detroit surprised me. I thought he was very eloquent and actually had some good points, which if he could have been engaged on his own, it probably would have been quite a good discussion. But there you go. That was my overall assessment. I thought this was an easy win for the theists, because of course, justified in believing is such a loose term. I mean, it couldn't have been phrased any worse, I don't think, this one. And, of course, you could be justified in believing something that's false. Right? I mean,
if you have a good reason, yeah.
Well, not even if you have a good reason. You can have a reason, right? That's all you need. It doesn't have to be a good one. Right? Like the example I always use in this case is, somebody in the thickets, right? They see the thickets move. Are they justified to run away? Of course they are. Of course they are. Is it necessary that there's going to be a tiger behind moving? No, it doesn't necessarily mean there's a tiger there, but of course they are justified in believing that there's a tiger there, right? Because the consequences are so terrible. And this is why I thought it was an easy win for the theists. They could have just gone, if God is true, hell exists, therefore we're justified in believing it.
Pascal's wager.
And exactly. That I think Sal metaphorically bless his heart. Pascal's wager seems to be very convincing to him. That he seems to. I still don't see the statistical reason even for that. But before we get into all those talking points, how are you doing, Megan?
Hi, Megan. She's on mute.
That's okay. So, how are you? And welcome to Midnight Ranting. Are theists justified in believing in God? What were your thoughts either on the debate or the topic, or how are you?
I don't think anybody has a rational reason to believe in God, not at their core. There's always a level of just either laziness or intellectual dishonesty. I found the chat quite engaging. To me, like I mentioned, the debate tonight was just so much word salad.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
just back and forth on the word contingent for like the whole debate. I mean, I couldn't. So
It happens a lot in debates like this. You delve into vague notions of philosophy, and it's not really convincing to anybody unless you're really, really desperate to be convinced by it.
Yeah. And I'll go into our little open discussion in a second, but we're going to let in our fifth person. How are you tonight, Brian?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. What were your thoughts? What were you going to say?
I'm a theist. I believe in God. I'm just always open to learn something new. I try to go into every conversation or debate. I'm always open to learn something new and just navigating. I found you through modern debate. I'm just glad to be part of the conversation.
Absolutely, and we welcome you on board. I'm so sorry you're in the den of lambs or here, but welcome. And
she won't bite.
Exactly. And also, someone mentioned it before. I think Megan mentioned it. Shout out to the chat. Did you watch the debate, Brian?
Parts of it.
Parts of it. What did you What did you think overall? Did you think the theists defended themselves well?
So. It's
huh?
Yeah, so. It's a hard topic because like nobody can prove that they're like scientifically is a god or isn't. It just kind of goes. I think it goes down to individual experience, like what you've learned or what you've experienced with or without God. That
do you have anything to share,
really
Brian, about your belief? What makes you?
Well, like my belief, I was an atheist. I lived like a kind of crazy lifestyle as a bartender. I worked 3 nights a week and made six grand a month, and just kind of lived a non-godly lifestyle, like whatsoever. And I was close to death. I ended up almost drinking. I was drinking a liter of vodka a day. I blew 0.5 in the hospital. Like,
oh wow,
3 different times.
That's hot.
It was bad. But I had. How can I sum this up quick? I tried to do treatment like 5 times, never made it. And then I tried God through AAA. And after reading the Bible and asking questions and being skeptical big time, after like 3 months, one day I just had a full-blown revelation that every single one of my problems in life were a result of not obeying the God of the Bible. And it's kind of hard to fully, but I could go back. Like I started having kids at 16. I was using drugs, I was stealing, like I could go to every single one of my problems in life. And that's what opened me up to start reading the Bible more and doing what it commands. And then that's when it really started clicking. Like I had mental illness before. I was on all kinds of meds, and like God commands us to think on things that are pure, righteous, holy. So I like slowly started redirecting my thoughts and not feeding some and feeding other thoughts, and got off all my meds. And ever since then, I've even been navigating through like Christianity. There's so many different denominations, and I honestly don't think any one person or church has everything correct.
And so I actually have questions myself, but before I do, Megan said she had a question, and we'll just open it up at this point to the open conversation section. So welcome everyone. And Megan, you said you had and I'll add Anzo backstage after she asked the question.
I do. Well, so I'll start off. I've been down much darker roads than just alcohol in life. I've been to both NA and AA meetings and found them useless. Do you think that AA might have primed you to have that revelation?
Kind of. There was a prayer in there, like God help me to think or to change the things I can, and like the wisdom to know the difference.
Serenity prayer, yeah.
Yeah, serenity prayer. Because I tried treatment. I tried going to AA. I was going to AA drunk. Like it was a complete mess. And then I went through a program called Teen Challenge. It's like a year-long jail diversion inpatient treatment, and that's where I was kind of just surrounded with people that I asked questions. I was a huge skeptic, like, and I tried like giving up sex.
We can bring you back.
Giving up sex before marriage was the hardest thing, and I tried to find, because I had a girlfriend through the program. I ended up marrying her 3 years after we got out, but I walked in purity for 3 years, and but that one I was like, no way, like I can't give up sex. But after I like studied to ask questions, it's like I see the fruit of having kids out of wedlock. Like I had a child at 16, and his life was really hard because of that. Like it's really tough on a family to do that, and it causes disease. You can create life, it can kill you. Like as a whole, God gave us that command for us to navigate through life, and my beliefs to live life to the fullest and be the most.
And so I'm gonna.
Someone else coming in?
Well, I'll let you respond in a second, Megan.
Okay.
Just want to add Alonzo in. Alonzo, how are you?
I'm doing great, and y'all?
I'm doing fantastic.
Hey, we're doing good.
What were your thoughts on are theists justifying believing in God? The debate, the topic, the whole shebang.
So,
Spaghetti monster.
I'm a theist, and
Well done.
I felt like Canada Catholic did a really horrible job of like explaining what he wanted to say. Like, I'm not that great of a debater. I'm not that great of a talker, really, and I felt like he did an even worse job than I would do in his situation. So. Yeah.
So can I just make a comment?
Can
I make a comment on that? I was telling James a joke behind stage before this started, because we know Sal. We've had Sal come on here and do a podcast, and just the difference of character. Can you imagine Sal in his closer being like, I just want to tell you, we destroyed you atheists, and they ran away, and it's like
That's just too much even from John Maddox. It wouldn't probably not even go to that level.
Let's just say two Christians came into debate. Let's say they had very different approaches to conversations.
And Sal's was more successful, I feel like. He had a good defense. The sort of argument I would probably make if I was in his situation there.
We didn't get to hear from Sal for like the first 15 minutes of the debate. Hardly any. It was the Canadian Catholic.
Yeah.
And do you know why? It's because Canadian Catholic has a script. He has a thing that he wants you to go dit, and if
like
you
a comfort script.
And in I don't know does not fit into any of the pathways. So an I don't know means we need to keep on going until we get into another pathway. I was going off in chat. He said, I just want to ask you a question. He got that. He got either 5 or 6 successful questions, just saying we just need to ask one question and we will get to an argument. And
yeah.
I'm trying to remember if that argument came, maybe.
Yeah.
Not really.
I did.
Eventually, he did render an argument that goes.
Yeah, he laid out that long premise list.
Yeah. I feel like what he was trying to do was, be like, okay, you believe this, and then this implies that. But then it was like, hey, we don't believe that. We actually believe this something else. And he wasn't ready to go, okay, you believe this something else. We're going to go this direction instead.
Yeah, what happens is they watch God is Not Dead, and then they just write a script based off of that, and they expect all atheists to reply the same.
Well, actually,
Right.
CC does know Pokin. They have talked before, and I think
Answer.
he should have known that Pokin was a duelist. So, it's kind of weird to me that he doesn't know that server, most of that server that Pokin
Did,
comes from,
didn't
are
didn't
duelists.
Canadian Catholic get banned from calling into the ACA shows?
Probably.
All the time they're like, "Are you Canadian Catholic?" 'Cause there's this other person that's been calling in with a similar name. They're like, "No, I swear I'm not."
Yeah.
I shouldn't
Noah
have highlighted.
Tangelo's banned.
Yeah.
So the person who just left. I'm sorry. I
Brian.
highlight comments. Brian. I
Oh.
should have waited until it was back on topic. That was my emotional wrong. But I support all the comments in the chat. But I feel bad. I shouldn't have done that in the middle of the thing.
I was gonna say, like, the way that I pretty much live, the Serenity Prayer can be kind of revamped into a secularized way. Like, rather than saying God, you could say, I'm going to allow for myself to have the power to accept the things I cannot change. I'm going to allow for myself to have the courage to change the things that I can, and I'm going to allow for myself to have the wisdom to know the difference. I mean, it's the same thing, only even more realistic.
Maybe.
And
I do think that there is power in thinking about the archetypes that you want to live out. That's why prayer to the saints is a big thing in Catholicism, is that when you actually look at it and you break it down, praying to the saints, what you're kind of actually praying about and thinking about is the archetype of how to correctly deal with the situation.
Are you a Catholic, Alonso?
No, I'm not. But I'm actually a Southern Baptist. Well, technically Independent Baptist right now, but I come from the Southern Baptist tradition. But I'm very ecumenical, and Catholicism is, I feel like, the definitive version of Catholicism that officially the Pope and all those teach is the version of Christianity that has to be dealt with. Because they've got basically the most thought behind them.
It seems to me that Catholicism, much like paganism, tends to assign supernatural beings to different aspects of our own mind.
Sort of, but yeah. Basically, what happens is that you've got I think it's Saint Jude, who's like the patron saint of lost causes or something. And these are different aspects of reality that these people are supposed to have kind of the special insight into, and to be the model of somebody dealing with, and when you think about, how would somebody who's smart reply to this, that's a very useful archetype to have, and a useful way to live your life,
Yeah, it's just, like me personally, I started studying. I was born a skeptic. I was raised in a First Baptist family, but I was the kid that was like, well, how did Lucifer choose to rebel against God if he didn't have a free will? Who did Cain have sex with? My parents like, why do you always have to ask questions? Why do you have to hyperanalyze everything? I never bought it. And I started studying hypnosis and how consciousness works at about the age of 12. So obviously later in life, when I got caught up in drugs and I had people trying to prime me, and I also had taken social psychology at that point, it pissed me off. So I've had to really like strive to find my own way. I've had to find secular support, and I stay engaged in things, and I bringing things into your life that you value. Like for some people, it's their kids, and the revelation is that I have kids and I need to be a freaking parent. That's the revelation.
Placebo effect is powerful.
And I want to just make a comment, then I'll bring back Antangelo. And Brian, I'm sorry. I meant, see, in my head, it translated as a good thing because I just wanted to bring up the topic. Because I've had, I get they're sister-ish. They're part of your family because you know them for so long. But people who have struggled with, I had a girlfriend who I went with. It wasn't AA. It was something like AA. But my big problem with Alcoholics Anonymous specifically, is that they put out a veneer that is anyone can join and you don't need a higher power. But if you actually read the tenets, they are very, very, like, they're more monotheistic than the Kalam cosmological argument. Let's just say that.
They're very transphobic. They wanted me to give up everything, including my female identity, and let them become my identity and decide things for me from that point on. And I chose prison instead.
But I don't want to knock your experience, because the fact that you got to a better place is the ultimate goal. So that I'm happy with it.
Amy on that one. If I could add,
you have to walk a fine line with that.
Yes, exactly. It's a fine,
and that is a really good example of having a justified belief in a higher power. As far as I'm concerned, right? That's enough to say, okay, well, it's worked for a lot of people, and therefore some people are justified in believing in a higher power because it's led them to a place much better in their lives, where they're certainly suffering much less abuse, and more importantly, are much less likely to abuse other people. So just on that basis alone, that's why I find this particular phrasing really bad phrasing, and we're about to come across the same kind of wishy-washy experience when Altangelo comes in, because he's asking the same question about atheists in the side chat, and I'm going to give the same answer.
He's in both chats, both channels right now. Unmute, Amy.
So anyway, big kudos to Brian for making this.
which I wanted to say, Brian, if you wanted to say anything, and after that we'll bring in on Antangelo.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I don't. There's a lot of people that said that their higher power was a doorknob and everything else, and I think there's more non-believers than the one that I went to.
Well, what they do is they want to get you in, even if you're willing to accept the doorknob, but then they start to shove fundamentalist Christian ideas on you.
Yeah, I can see some of them like that. But like even today, like when I look at Christianity, and it's like God commands us to even love our enemies, and like in our culture, even in America right now, like people with different views, like you should. To me, the answer is 100% just to love even people you don't agree with. And like for racism, like being born again into a new family, like to me it's clear as day that Christ is the answer to all the problems. And in our society, people that don't obey God are all of our problems.
I disagree. I don't obey a god. I follow the 7 tenets of the Satanic Temple personally, and that works great for me. It reminds me that people's bodies are inviolable and subject to their own will.
Yep. I just feel like
it reminds me to take a step back and evaluate the things in my life that I love. It reminds me to keep things scientific and don't get paranoid, delusional, and freaked out about stupid shit to get all caught up in pseudoscience. And so that's what's been working really good for me. I was able also to kick psych meds as an atheist. I take a sleeping pill at night, but I mean it's like a 10 milligram dose of Remeron.
How did you do it? What was your process to getting off it?
Gathering support, gathering community online, joining the Satanic Temple has been very empowering. Supporting the temple. I collect merchandise from them, and I know that I'm supporting a good cause, and I interact. One of the things is I do my best to take a step back and look at the things in life, that I'm thankful that I have, like my cat, a good bed, just slowly building up, and then setting future goals that don't involve getting into trouble or doing things that get me into trouble. I have been drinking a little bit. I drank at the beginning of this month, and it didn't go so well. So again, I'm on a pause. But I mean, I rack up more clean days than most of the people that I met in AA or NA. I mean, so I don't see anything there helpful for me. But I think for anybody who's LGBT, the program is far less effective. It's a lot easier for somebody who's heteronormative to follow a program like that. So yeah, so I
bring in.
And I was gonna say, Brian, we can go back into the open conversation format in a second, but I just want to say, welcome in on Tangelo. How are you tonight? And what do you think about the debate? What do you think about the topic? Are theists justified in believing in God?
Yes, hello everyone. I'll just stay quick because it's almost 3 a.m. here where I am. So I'll stay 10 or 15 minutes only. But I just want to say this. The question of your stream, Amy, are theists justified in believing in God, is a very standard question made by atheists. But what I see is that atheists very commonly, they scrutinize the theist claims, but they rarely do that in the same manner in regards of the claim that the material world is all there is. And I think if you want to actually investigate in the most neutral way origins, then you have to compare both propositions, one that there is a God and the other that there is no God. Then you have to ask yourself, well, if there is no God, do the remaining mechanisms, and I don't know if there actually can be another mechanism if you remove an intelligent agency, there would basically just be chance or happenstance or stochastic events. Can such events actually instantiate the complexity which we observe in the physical world? And I think this is a very relevant question which every seeker should actually ask, and then comparing the answers which come from both views, and to see which one makes more sense.
Did you watch the debate, Otangelo? Did you get to see it? You didn't get to see the debate?
No, I didn't.
You didn't miss much.
And with that, we can go back into open conversation.
Well, I certainly have asked myself those questions and come up with naturalistic answers, or at least answers which are more parsimonious than positing agency and God.
Mm-hmm. I think that naturalism, for you to be a naturalist, I think you need to have a powerful explanation for the what somebody might describe as the lived experiences of billions of people around the world of some sort of supernatural force in the universe, and you need to have a good explanation of that.
Yeah,
Really?
We don't know things.
I think we can explain a decent amount. It just depends on what it is. Like, I think we can explain near-death experiences, at least to a degree that we understand that the brain is taking lots of stress. It may be breaking down or malfunctioning. There are at least explanations available that you can start to
certainly there's a lot of ways that you can deal with quite a wide variety of near-death experiences. However, in the near-death kind of literature, what you also find are these things where people hear a conversation that wasn't being had in the room or whatnot, or get some piece of information that their brain couldn't have had and is true, and so those experiences, if they happen to you, you might not be like, well, that's just like a lucky guess or something, but if they happen to you and you know that really, I did not know this piece of information and there wasn't any way for me to know it,
our brains have
that's a good reason to think, hey, there's something else happening.
But can you?
If it happened to me, I might think something was to it, but I don't know.
See, our brains are pattern seekers. Our brains pattern seek, whether we want it to or not. There's many processes that are going on in our brain that we're not aware of, making predictions. I mean, even to what's going on outside of our house, the conversations. I mean, and you add that together with the hallucinogens that drop out from the pineal gland, when you experience a near-death experience, and that pretty much sums it up. Because what people witnessed, like when they did Operation Remote Viewing, was that the data was, basically that sometimes it'd be accurate, sometimes it wouldn't be, but it was never precise. It wasn't useful enough to pursue out-of-body experiences. I personally have had near-death experiences all the way to the point of ending up in the hospital, having to have my blood cleaned, purified, and slowly regaining consciousness and watching as the different parts of my brain came back together into a full functioning self-awareness. And during that, I didn't have visuals. I heard people talking around me. And at one point I couldn't see, but I could hear. It's like things were slowly coming back. And I've experienced just the complete loss of consciousness so many times. I'm also epileptic, so I've had multiple grand mal seizures.
Really?
And during those,
Small world.
no consciousness, no out of body.
I was gonna say.
Nothing. And when you come out of it, at first you don't even know your own name. It's like the parts of your brain, and after you've had several, you start to realize what's happening. You're like, okay, now I'm waiting for this part of my brain to click back on, and you realize that everything you are exists within your brain. Some people are,
Amy was trying to jump in here.
I know. Hold on 1 second. I'm coming back. I get excited when people talk about the brain. Woohoo! Talking about the brain. But I share. I know exactly. I share that with you, Megan. It's part of the reason why I'm so interested in consciousness is I have temporal lobe epilepsy. And so I developed it at 28 randomly.
I did it at 24. I started getting seizures.
Really?
About 20. Yeah, right around that same age is when I started getting grand mal seizures. I had sensitivity in my
grand mal.
Green screen monitors. Oh my gosh, when I was younger, like I never had a seizure up to that point. But
to just to explain to the audience, the difference is that it means that my epilepsy happens in the temporal region. Now, what happens normally is it starts that way and then it becomes a grand mal seizure when it breaks out. But what Megan's saying is that her seizure is a grand mal. It's happening all over the brain. The whole brain at once.
Yeah, and it starts off with petite mal seizures. Like I'll see like auras in my vision. It's very uncomfortable. It's like flashing color. It's usually like red and blue or green and yellow, like blotches in my vision, and it's like a migraine every time it hits. And then I'll start feeling like I'm getting zapped, like I'm getting short-circuited, and then all just nothingness. And then I come to feel like I'm waking up from a really deep sleep, where there's no dreams or nothing. And I'll have like dislocated shoulders or like some like gaping wound, or it's been bad. But about 2010, 2011, they really released a medication called Keppra, because I couldn't take Dilantin. That stuff made me so nauseous.
I took Keppra. Yeah.
I took
Tegretol.
Diazepines for a long time.
Okay, guys, I'm leaving.
Sorry, we're going into consciousness. It was nice seeing you.
Thank you for the link,
again,
Otangelo. I'm gonna go through it, Otangelo. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Like one thing we know though is that people are predictable. James Randi's proven it. Darren Brown has proven it. So it's no
James Randi.
That if somebody's
he just died, didn't he?
Indeed, he did.
Yeah, Randy passed away. Yeah, unfortunately. I was hoping to meet him before he died, but I realized he was 93.
He was a good man. He did a lot of good.
Yeah, he debunked a lot of stuff, and Darren Brown kind of carries a legacy. He does a lot of tests on to demonstrate consciousness and how different parts of the brain work. He's been able to turn atheists into religious people, even though he's an atheist, and then of course deprogram them afterwards.
Is it the God helmet experiment?
Huh?
The God helmet experiment?
No, it's called Miracles for Sale.
Miracles for Sale. Okay.
Darren Brown, Miracles for Sale. He actually turned the guy into a faith healer who was an atheist and got him to perform faith healing and have it work successfully without the person even like believing, just to test it. And he was saying something about like neuroscans that have been done on people like Mormon missionaries, and there seems to be like a large amount of activity in the frontal lobe of their brain that isn't there in people that are less religious. So like I know what the frontal lobe feels like. I've had those experiences, but I was always suspicious. I was like, I just don't think this is God. It just seems like my voice of reason and like this like social euphoria. Like, I mean, because I think that they suspect that's where like the social part of our brain is like the frontal lobe, like the part that kind of connects us together as a species. So
the neocortex, that seems the newest part seems to be where a lot of the social structure stuff tends to happen. So
where's the neocortex located?
I'm gonna get it wrong because I'm forgetting if it's closer
atheists,
or
we
inside.
have the ability to take our brain out of our skull at will and put it back.
I should know this, but I have to look it up so I can point out my brain model.
So
I know
Amy
my temporal lobe is on the
out.
bottom. Exactly. The funny thing about that is I have completely different onset. So my onset of a seizure, because it's in the memory presence of my lobe, is the presence of deja vu. Is that not fucking freaky? Is that it feels like
things like that before seizure? Yeah, I've
that makes sense.
It's like shocking. It's like whoa, like, and then, but I mean, like I get a lot more than that going on real fast.
But how long do you have, Amy, before it goes from that to a full seizure?
Until I lose consciousness. It generally, I think it was like 10 or 15 minutes, but it's now under control and I can drive again. Woo! But now I'm obsessed with consciousness and finding a synthetic version. But that's a whole nother topic. In 1 second, we're going back to God.
I was just gonna say, I had one grand mal seizure back in my 20s, where when I came out of it, they had defibrillators on standby. Like apparently, I stopped breathing for a period of time.
At some point, we're going to be ready to do a whole stream on consciousness, but
I know I keep on pushing it back.
Yeah,
wow.
We want to make it a grand stream, an amazing stream.
Wow.
Yeah, real quick on that, like consciousness is such a.
I see that joke. I see it
going on.
Doo-doo.
And even plants have some of those things that consist of what makes ultimately our consciousness. While they're not conscious, they do have aspects of our consciousness that may point to something equivalent to awareness, but in a different way.
I'd say they may have like a proto or a light on some aspects. It doesn't tend to be their shtick, but they're. I've seen a paper on that they might emit like a high frequency scream. So that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I was looking into that too. There's still a lot to be understood about what's the technical term, botany.
Botany is plants?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Amy thinks she's related to a tomato. Go figure.
I know. A tomato and a mosquito. Oh.
I think I'm related to like a piece of cheatgrass, you know?
As far as I'm aware, we are 50% bananas.
50.
Or pond scum.
If you go back far enough, we're related to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
we are.
I think it's actually amazing that we have common ancestry. It didn't have to turn out that way. The fact that it is just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of awesome that we are kind of one big extended family.
Yes.
You can look at a tree and you're at some level related to it.
Something you would have thought God would have told people if he existed.
Yeah.
You would have thought he would have made it clear that he exists.
Long ago, when I came off LSD and I said, "So what then?" and somebody said, "Look at a tree," I saw. Okay, so trees have rings relative to the Earth revolving around the sun. I was like, they represent what? Growth. They represent, they produce oxygen. I mean, like, I'm very skeptical and factual. I guess people are just different. Like, some people are more right brain, some people are more left. I think I'm more left.
Yeah. I'm interested in.
We're going through the Bible right now.
Different sides,
and got it at where we're at. God has no problem showing himself. He has no problem acting and doing stuff and killing people he wants to kill, and he's taking action, taking names, kicking ass, sending people to hell, killing people. But yeah, that's not going to last for a whole lot longer, I don't think.
In fact,
gonna-
if you're new to the stream, we run a Skeptic Bible study here, which is a regular King James Bible with just notes on the side by annotations, and we're reading cover through cover. We are about to finish Genesis. I'm
we're
now
at 43.
I am just now starting to realize how
43
many.
or
When they
44?
say books, they mean books. Yeah, something like that.
66.
I have the Concordance Revised Standard Version, but it follows pretty close to the King James Version.
Mm-hmm.
And I was Ananta, were you about to say something? Or you look like it's on mine.
I just thought that was funny because the church I'm technically a member of right now is a KJV only church.
KJV.
Like Ken Hovind. Yeah, they only use.
And that's funny because I'm from England, and of course that's where the KJV comes from. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
Now, there was some interesting stuff I found out about it, which was one of the scholars that was involved. There were many scholars involved in writing KJV. And one of these scholars, a particular notebook was found with notes that he'd written about how he did the translation and what he translated and why he rewrote certain passages the way he did. And amazing, just amazing. Amazing insight into something as literary as the King James.
Who would have known 43
right
dukes
back.
in Genesis? You would have thought it's the UK, but
And
no,
Haley,
it's the
this
Bible.
is not something you come on a stream on. I see you in chat. Don't do this in chat. You're a roommate. Jesus, holy moly. Welcome to live entertainment on Amy Newman Live presents Midnight Ranting. Our theists justify and believing in God. Keep on talking, guys. I'll be right back.
Okay. So
keep it going, Amy.
The reason I brought up that I'm going to a KJV only church is because I don't actually think that if you want to get what the Bible is saying in today's language, the KJV is objectively not the right translation to be using.
Agreed. I mean, it's very interpretive.
It's dated. It's difficult.
They translated it and then put a theological reading onto it and then rewrote it.
But if you talk to the ones who push KJV only, they'll tell you that according to their research, the manuscripts it was translated from are the best and most accurate. But again, a whole lot of people disagree with that. So,
which I mean, just isn't true. The modern, basically, my understanding is that he was working mostly with the Latin and some Greek manuscripts. But now we have, basically only use the Greek manuscripts.
They call it Textus Receptus, if I'm not wrong.
So my understanding on the Textus Receptus is actually that it's a translation of the King James Version to Greek, which is weird,
I think he used Hebrew as well for the Old Testament. And it's a team. It was a whole team. I mean, I think the cost of getting the King James translated almost broke the realm. It was something like they exceeded the budget, the king's budget.
Did they have access to the Septuagint when they were doing that? They did.
Yeah. But they literally made a translation and then theologically went through it and translated that into English in a way which tried to maintain the meaning, but not the literal translation.
But didn't King
James? They added dukes to Genesis.
Didn't King James
theological interpretation added on top? Go ahead, Nick.
I was saying, didn't King James add to the Bible though? Like, I kind of grew up with that impression. Like my family.
Not really.
It was tilted. I don't think they added to it.
Yeah, basically what happens is that anytime you're translating from one language to another, there is a certain perspective you can impart to the text, and every translator does that to one degree or another. And I feel like the translators of the original King James did definitely impart a certain perspective onto it, but I don't think that they were doing so like extremely maliciously. And there are some pieces of the King James that we don't have in our normal text nowadays, but they were in the text that the King James translators were using, and so I don't really count that as them adding to it, as the stories were already there. But
anytime you take a translation, you're going to have things that don't translate exactly. So you're at some level going to be putting your spin on it a little bit. You try and minimize that, but it's unavoidable when you go from multiple languages.
They didn't try to avoid it. It was written for the king and for the king's approval. Okay, so it's there to prompt the divine right of kings, for instance, and support that narrative, and also to support the narrative that the king was above the lords, right, and the lords should pay their taxes.
Because it was a Protestant version, it wasn't a Catholic version.
Yeah, and
that was after the Reformation.
Sure, and also just to point out that they ran out of money, or the king ran out of money while he was printing it, and I think the last third of it or so was almost stolen completely from the Tinsdale Bible,
right,
which is the Bible that was the first English Bible, which was written some 15 or so years earlier.
KJV was extensively based on the Tisdale Bible, which he was burnt for.
Only about a third of it or something like that. It wasn't a large amount of it. But again, the scholars that did it, these were the best and brightest translators that knew several languages. They knew Latin, they knew Greek, and some of them knew Hebrew, etc. And it wasn't just a question of people just sitting down writing it out. It was a question of writing it out, then they would discuss it, take the best version between what the discussion led, rephrase it, try and get the meaning across, try and institute this, the purpose of it, which of course was to support kingship. So, there's a whole series of political angles to it. But it's truly a great piece of work in the sense that it's a literary marvel.
It's a literary achievement,
It's in a sense a literary translation. Usually, when we think about translations, we think about them as being more kind of thought for thought, or being more word for word. And what happens with the KJV is that you get one that's more thinking about, okay, what is the literary? How do we not just translate this into words, but how do we make this a beautiful piece of text to read?
Poetic license. What would your preferred version be, Alonso?
So if I was doing just kind of a casual Bible study, I'd probably use the ESV. But I also use I use several different translations when I'm actually trying to get in and dig into something. There's one translation whose name keeps escaping me, but what they do is that they're a very literal translation, and where there's like several different meanings of a word, they'll put in like, say, 2 or 3 like little things in brackets of, okay, this word could mean this or it could mean that, and I really enjoy that one.
Well, that gives you some more insight into it, the text. Welcome back, Amy.
Hi, welcome back.
She's on.
Thank you so very much.
So we were just talking about Bible translations.
Talking a little bit about Bible versions, but you will probably want to get it back close to the topic.
That's okay. It's always interesting, all the different types of Bibles that they are. It just
interesting.
By random that we're doing the King James Bible just because of the skeptic annotation version. That must have been the one, the guy who did it, that must have been the one that he was raised in.
Well, I think the KJV only crowd is probably like the loudest, most aggressive crowd. So if you did another version, they'd come out and say, well, you didn't do the King James version, so it doesn't count. So they just went there, they did the King James. That way, you can't say, oh, you only did the NIV. That's the Satanic Bible.
No, it's not. I've read the Satanic Bible.
It's like the metric system. It's,
It's like the metric system. That's quite.
It's funny. Like the metric system.
Okay.
So from an imperial country.
I'll bring us back onto topic. So I asked both of them during the debate. I sent a question and I said, can you falsify or what would it take to falsify your belief? Basically, what would it take to change your mind? And Sal said abiogenesis, and there was a long pause for Canadian Catholic to answer the question, and then it went onward. We got silence.
You never got an answer.
Nothing. Never got an answer.
Maybe if he was making a grilled cheese and the Virgin Mary was on the toast and she told him that she wasn't real.
See,
I was very impressed by Sal making such a direct answer.
Yeah.
I have to say, because it's not often that they will just come straight out and go, no, that would falsify it. And
John Maddox said the same thing.
It's something scientific, right? Quite often I've heard theists say, I know, well, if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, you know what I mean? I've heard that excuse before, and you go, well, what are you saying there? You know what I mean? If you found a tomb that wasn't empty, would that really help? You know, I'm not sure. Not sure what you mean, but how to say abiogenesis, which of course we are likely to discover.
Empty tomb, Amy, empty tomb.
You know what I mean?
Empty tomb.
You didn't find the spaghetti monster in it.
Doesn't
Empty pot or empty colander.
Alonso, did you want to say something?
Yeah. So for me, it depends.
And then Megan, and then I see Megan.
I'm sorry.
No.
So for me, I think it depends on what part of our belief system that we're talking about. For me, it would take a whole lot less for me to change from, say, an independent Baptist church to a Methodist church than it would for me to go from being a Protestant to being a Catholic, or being a Christian to being a deist. Now, one of the things that Themos said that, kind of frustrated me was that, there's this whole resurrection thing. And I think at this point in my life, yeah, you'd have to do something pretty impressive in terms of the resurrection to get me to move away from Christianity. Now, that doesn't mean I don't know what that sort of evidence would look like. Let's say that there was an alien ship that just happened to be above, Jerusalem or whatnot, making these scans, and it turns out that, they've basically been able to reconstruct everything. It turns out, no, just died and he was kind of tossed into a pit. That would really shake my belief in Christianity,
Yeah, that's fair. Again, I've heard that a number of times from theists. I couldn't, even if you did present some evidence, right?
But you would go back to deism, or you would look for another faith at that point?
I'd go to deism, probably theism, something like that, where God's not really interacting that very much with the world.
I'm pretty sure we've been able
Fair
to
enough.
Genesis. Haven't we been able to create life at a single-celled organism level?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Not really, sort of.
Yeah, the experiments that we've been able to do at this point, my understanding is basically create amino acids, both left and right-handed amino acids. And that's basically where we are, is my current understanding.
For abiogenesis, yeah. Abiogenesis research.
And for me, abiogenesis would not significantly change my views on whether or not God created the universe or any of like my theological positions or whatnot. It would just be, oh, that's a cool science thing.
So you would take the position, well, it could have happened naturally, but that doesn't mean God didn't do it anyway. Just because it could happen.
My perspective is that God set up a universe where abiogenesis could happen and created the rules for it to happen, and so maybe he did it special. Maybe he, created a system where it can happen, either one of those, I don't really care.
Typical, like normal theistic evolutionist. He set up the rules and he let nature take its course, but he knew what would happen.
But I mean, really, when you talk about a God being the cause of the Big Bang, then you're no longer talking about the God of the Bible, period. Or really,
well Megan, we just heard that it was your God who caused that in our Hovind video.
What?
Ken Hovind in his video said that the devil was the origin of the Big Bang and evolution.
I
He gave the devil credit for that. So
yeah, I don't believe in either. I don't believe in God or the devil.
And
I know.
Before I forget, I'm gonna enter Jamie.
Jamie.
Hey.
Hey, Jamie.
Good evening.
How are you doing tonight? Do you have any thoughts on tonight's debate or the topic, are theists justifying believing in God?
Not at the moment.
Okay. And with that, hey, that sounds good to me. Well, with that, we'll go back into open conversation.
And if God wants to come in the stream, we'll let him come in too.
Yes, this is I'd be doing Donald wrong if I wouldn't say, okay, here we'll give it the 3, 2, 1.
So here's an interesting question. If God did, pop up into this chat or whatnot, would there be anything he could say that would change your mind on anything?
I mean, it would be, first of all, a start. The typical skeptical answer is, I don't know, but they would. But I would even play further with that. I mean, that's the start, right? We get someone on the stream. They say, look, I don't know what to tell you guys. I'm God. I had no choice in it. It's like this. I mean, I had as much choice in it as you did in being born. So I'm just here to talk, and I wanted to have a relationship. I wrote a book, but they seem to got some things messed up, and they got that whole killing gays thing wrong. We're gonna nix that. And yeah, hi. I want to have a relationship. I don't know about how personal it's gonna be, but at least that point we're getting closer.
No, that doesn't.
Does that answer?
That doesn't do it for me. Personal experience is not going to do it for me. Mainly because
that
I
would be a
wake
start.
up tomorrow.
I agree.
Well, yeah, maybe it's a start, but it's just not going to do it because I can wake up tomorrow and go, nah, did I really have that experience? Am I sure I had that experience? Don't really know. I could be convinced by not having the experience, but feeling like I had the experience. So I'm not sure that that's good enough. I would want some kind of scientific evidence, right? And I like Tom Jump's one here where he says, right, I prayed for right, in the name of Jesus, and the gold brick appeared, and then I did it again, and another gold brick appeared. I would have the gold bricks, right? And I'd be looking at the gold bricks going, hang on, how did I get those? Right? So, that would have...
I really want to praise God.
And can I just want to add on, I agree with you. My point would be, it has to have a starting point. And so once the dude comes in here, it's like, well, how do we go around proving it? Well, then we need to get this person in a lab. We need to watch them walk on water or whatever. I don't exactly see the correlation in the specific miracles, but it would prove the powers. I don't know exactly how you'd be able to prove universe creation and physics bending things, but
he would be able to do
get
it.
in the lab.
If he was all powerful, he would know how to do it. I think Jamie wanted to make a response.
Yep, Jamie, and then Alonso. Yep.
Yeah, I totally get it. So if I could just pray and say, God, if you just gave me the biggest intellect, I would believe then. I thought the beginning of your answer was really honest. You're basically admitting that nothing would convince you because you could always deny it later. I think that's ridiculous because, I mean, are you saying like it couldn't? What do you mean scientific evidence? I just don't even get that.
Do you want Simon's to answer? Was that for me or both of us?
Yeah, both of you, I guess, since you agree with that. I think T-Jump's thing is so silly. It's like ridiculous. It's like, I don't even know what to make of that. Like, you're basically saying, well, if I was God, I would do it this way. And so if I was God, then I'd believe in God. I mean, that's basically what you're saying. It's like, if God was subordinate to magical powers.
If it was apparent, T-Jump's thing is if it's apparent, obvious, and demonic, then I would believe in it.
And actually,
if it's undeniable.
And I am making a claim.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And I would say, I mean, because I'm a soft atheist, but I sometimes go harder to the hard and sometimes the anti-theist. I would say, if they could just give us a Damascus Road experience, I don't understand why it was good for Saul if they can't do the same for us.
I think there's the answer to that is probably the best answer is probably, well, he had that experience for a very particular reason at a very particular time. And so, I mean, I guess you're basically saying you have a problem with the hiddenness of God, right?
That is a big problem for atheists, yeah. Because there's no justification for it.
I used to struggle with that, but I think it has. The answer for me is that when you consider the Bible in a serious manner and the kind of things that it's saying, for me that hasn't been a problem for a long time, because I see God as being like holy and separate for a reason, and in the way the world is, and it's part of the narrative. So to me, that's a really, it's a sensible answer to that. But
he hides himself because he wants to, he wants to. Therefore, okay.
And Simos, did you want to answer too? Oh no, Jamie, you were going to say something.
Yeah, sure.
No, I'll pass it on.
Okay, well, basically, for me, the gold brick thing is, a gold brick is something that I personally can't get hold of. So there's no way I could deny, if I had a gold brick in front of me, that it came from somewhere, right? I mean, it's a physical object. And unlike memories, okay, I can't wake up tomorrow and go, did that really? Can I doubt that? I just walk to the gold brick and go, oh, look, the gold brick is still there. I can't doubt that gold brick is there. That's not possible. I can smack myself in the head as much as I like. It's still going to hurt, right? Unlike the memories or the thought of having some person.
I think that even Egypt says that.
And that's in inverted commas. I'm saying that that's some kind of scientific experiment which would justify the existence of at least the thing that brought the gold brick to me, right? And in that case, I would be saying every time, oh yeah, I do it in the name of Jesus, right? So therefore, it would justify in my head Jesus' existence. Right?
Well, you say it's the memory.
Say again.
Well, you said now you're saying if you had the memory of it, but you'd have the physical evidence for it. But presumably, if you have to refer to the memory of it, you're not able to do it every time, and so that would seem to me to give you every reason for it to just be a memory in the sense of the supernatural nature of it. You could start convincing yourself that it was a coincidence or blah blah blah. It happened and now it doesn't happen anymore. I have the memory of it. I think that would just be a memory, because even T-Jump, I think he says, if he could just pray any old time he wanted to and that happened, then he says, well, then actually it would just be a scientific principle that we would just add to our body of knowledge, that you could do this certain incantation and gold bricks appear, but it wouldn't really prove God. I swear I remember him saying something like that later on.
But how about healing amputees, Amy? Going into the hospital, just healing them all.
That's right. Once again, we forgot to bring up our daily sponsorship and advertisement. We're sponsored by www.whydoesn'tgodhealamputees.com.
He does. Yeah. You just think they were healed amputees because they have their appendage back.
That's a fair criticism, and I understand it, but I don't think it holds water in that. This is in T-Jump's case. He's saying that it needs to be repeatable. All right. And therefore, we already have a physical model, which means that gold bricks don't appear for no reason. You have to smelt. You have to smelt ore. You have to pour them into a mold. Okay. You have to, let them cool, and then you can take them somewhere. I personally don't have access to any of that technology or ability to even afford that technology. So for me, that would constitute a strong evidence that something supernatural had happened, something beyond the physical norm, if you like. Maybe you could maybe you're right in saying, well, then I've got to remember that then led to the causation of that brick. But I'm not so skeptical, because that's quite a normal claim. right? That's not an extraordinary claim.
Mm-hmm.
The extraordinary claim is that the brick actually appeared, okay? Not that I prayed to Jesus, right? That's a normal claim. People pray to Jesus.
Right. When you qualified as a personal experience, though, just the same, though, if it was just a past memory.
No, it's a normal. It is a personal experience. You're right, but it's a normal personal experience. There's nothing extraordinary about it. There's no Jesus appeared to me in spirit, right? When everybody else in the room couldn't see him, right, or on the road, shall we say? Okay, that's an extraordinary experience, right? Whereas if I say, "Oh, look, I've got a gold brick, and here it is," right? That's normal. Yes, the gold brick is extraordinary, but of course the demonstration of it is normal. All right, because like I have it, I can demonstrate I have it because it's in my hand. It's heavy. It's gold. You can see it's gold. It's not tarnishing. It has all these properties that gold has. So that's the kind of difference. I think it meets the claim of being extraordinary. Okay, with having normal evidence.
The problem with miracles is that some people define a miracle as God breaking the natural laws, like basically doing magic or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I have problems
like
with
parting
that.
the.
Say again. Like what?
Like parting the Red Sea, or you know.
Yeah, and there's evidence for that, but you can deny it if you want. But I mean,
I deny it. I deny it. Yeah.
I would like to see it.
Well, I mean, there is evidence of
It's been great talking to you. Oh, y'all, I've got to peace out. Have fun. Talk to you later.
It was nice having you on. Thanks you for the conversation.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Alonso.
Night, Alonso.
Yeah, see ya.
What's the evidence for the Red Sea being parted? Could you put that in the private chat?
Yeah, I mean, I could just say it really quick if you want, but I don't want to hog the mic.
No, I mean, go ahead.
Okay, so the evidence is if you pull up Google Earth and you zoom in on the Sinai Peninsula, what's called the Sinai Peninsula, there's two fingers of the Red Sea, an east and a west, and then Egypt's up on the upper left there in the Nile Delta. And if you go to the right, that land mass in between the fingers is what's called the Sinai Peninsula. And then there's on that eastern finger, on the eastern side of that is Saudi Arabia. This proposed site is, if you zoom in on that eastern finger of the Red Sea, you'll see an obvious path if you know the story, and where there's kind of like it's called a wadi. You go through like in these mountain. It's like a winding path through a mountain range, and then it comes out right on the beach, on the western beach. It's called Nuweiba Beach. It's the only spot where it could fit the story where the Egyptians are catching up with them. And then it says a pillar came down and separated the two groups, so they couldn't get any closer while they're on the beach, and then they thought they were screwed. That's the only spot where if you take the water out of the Red Sea, it's really deep, but in that one spot under the water, it's actually got a slope that you could walk across and come up the other side. And they've gone diving in there and found it's all sandy right there, and coral can't grow on sand. But there's all these weird coral formations going across that area, and they're clearly Egyptian chariot parts, with only the corals replaced the parts, and so you can see. And they've even found they're all appropriate to the right dynasty of Egypt, and then also they found on both sides of that spot really old Phoenician style pillars. One of them was like in the water on the eastern side, and one was still standing on the western side. The Israelis actually took it up from the beach and planted a little higher. You can actually see the shadow from Google Earth 2 of the pillar. And there was Phoenician writing that was clearly from Solomon's day, and it said it had a bunch of words on it. I forget what they were, but it alluded like he came later and then marked the spot where they crossed. And then on from there, I showed you the Rock of Horeb, where the water. You can see water erosion between this huge split rock, and then water erosion coming down the hill in the middle of the desert. And it's in the right spot according to the story. The 12, even the oasis it describes, forget what that's called, but it's in the Exodus story. The 12, there's still 12 wells there, just like it said in the story, in that spot. And then, I mean, and just on and on from there, like every detail is right. Like they found Mount Sinai's there. There's altars. You can see there's evidence of where they worship the golden calf, and you can see it from coming down Mount Sinai. It's all there. They even have pictographs with Hebrew
You're on
writing.
mute, Amy.
I mean, I'm trying to think where
I'll look into it, but
I'm highly skeptical of some of that stuff, like the chariots being under there, like this entire army, because we don't have a pharaoh. There's no evidence that
were they iron chariots?
of
Did they
the,
rust?
this. We don't have evidence of a massive pilgrimage of Jews going through Egypt. We don't have. It almost sounds like you're trying to build a naturalistic explanation, but we don't have evidence of like the sea massively parting specifically so that people could go through it.
And how do we know that these things that are there, that someone didn't discover them and end up being like, I'll bet this is what happened, and they just made up a story about what happened and people just kind of went with it?
Well, the chariot wheels are down pretty far, and it'd be hard to like
confirm to be chariot wheels. I would have to look into that. But,
you'd have to like know the story well too. I mean, it helps to know if you know the story really well, or you like really study it out and you look at the evidence. I'll try to put some links in there. And I mean, obviously it doesn't prove God, but it kind of is like, it's like if there's chariots from the right dynasty of Egypt, and then there's pillars like hundreds of years after the story from the, with Solomon's, from Solomon's reign. And then, the rock of Horeb is a real thing where there's this giant split rock that Moses struck, and there's evidence of water erosion erupting up out of it and then flowing down the hill large enough to feed the multitude that they described. Proto-Hebrew writing.
Can I ask, do you feel that there's explanations for all these? Like if I asked you, was the Tower of Babel a real tower? Do you think it was a real tower?
Well, the problem here is that people, there's different versions of how I tend to take it pretty like what you would probably think was pretty crazy, I guess. But there's so many different versions of the way people understand it. But yeah, I think there was a central place where mankind was rebuilding from where Noah's Ark landed, and I think they disobeyed God and they built. And I think the tower thing was more like, it wasn't that they were building it super high. It was more like the idea was they wanted to call God down into their temple whenever they felt like it, and they were building up themselves rather than God. And not
that explanation worked back then, but today it seems silly.
But it's not in this. It seems like, as far as it's a very short story, but as far as I can tell, it's like the humans came together, and it seems like for once there was peace, and God's like, to hell with that. They're talking all one language. They're working together. What are they trying to show me up? They're building this tower. I'm going to knock this tower down and mess up all their languages.
Well, he had a plan, that's the story. And so they were disagreeing that. They weren't part of that. They wanted to make
ALN.
Can I just get in there a second?
Yes.
Okay, so are you Jamie, is it? Jamie, yeah.
That's Jamie,
yes, Jamie, yeah.
It is.
Sorry,
okay, yeah.
unless you want me.
Work done by, I think his name is David Rathenberg. Is that the guy's name you're talking about?
Say the last name again.
I think it's Rathenberg.
I'm not familiar with him. Some of it started with Ron Wyatt, but other people now have been verifying it after him. He has a bad rap, I think, but and a lot of the weren't originally his, but he did a lot of them sequentially in his last 30 years. So
so this isn't archaeological consensus. This is biblical archaeology, right? You realize that?
Well, okay, yeah, but one part of the problem is it's in Saudi Arabia. A lot of this stuff, once you get over the Red Sea, it's all in Saudi Arabia. They have their national archaeologists have fenced off some of the sites I mentioned, like the Golden Calf site, and they have security there, and they actually have military bases on nearby mountain ranges too. So, but the one is actually marked off in English and Saudi saying, you know, an archaeological site, stay away or whatever.
Okay, yeah, I'm just pointing out that this is done by somebody who that do have confirmation bias, are looking specifically for these signs, and that as such, I would say it's likely to be a just so story. Also, there seems to be some doubt from the rest of the archaeological community, right, that this is a genuine discovery, and that in fact that if we go by the Bible alone, it's hardly possible to find Mount Sinai, okay? Because there are conflicting descriptions of it in the text itself. So it's not like there's some kind of consistency that we're talking about. We can take the Bible and go, yeah, and this definitely points to this particular area, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It is the case. And it's because the professional archaeologists made all sorts of presumptions that it couldn't be like the Bible said is why they didn't find it. And there's a whole history to that whole story. They thought the Sinai Peninsula was in between the two fingers of the Red Sea. That's what's called today the Sinai Peninsula. But really, that wasn't far enough to the east. It's in actual Saudi Arabia. And if you look at the history in Saudi and what the locals say, they know, they've always known. When you talk to locals over there, they know where Midian is. They know where Moses found his wife and where Jethro was, and they actually have that marked off, and they'll tell you over there. You can find interviews of it all over. But
sure, I mean they also obviously being Muslims also believe in the book, right, the Old Testament, as we would.
Just say that the evidence is so overwhelming that of all the sites that and following the biblical narrative, and the site after site, just like it says, enough evidence is like you can't really fake it. Like I said, there's petroglyphs, the oldest depiction of a menorah, and they even drew on these big rocks where the golden calf likely was an Egyptian-style bull, Hathor, and then in the same petroglyphs that are verified as ancient, they drew words. They drew Hebrew words. Why would the Muslims fake that? They don't want to have Jews having according to their language.
They believe in the Old Testament. They just think the Jews got parts of it wrong. They don't dispute the Old Testament.
There's an interesting thing with that too. Part of the text talks about God promised them that wherever they set their foot would be part of their land or whatever. And there's along with the petroglyphs all through the area. There's a weird like where they on places where you would have stepped on like rocks or whatever. They actually drew like it looks like a tracing of the sandal with the straps undone on the petroglyph. Like somebody put their foot down and traced it, and then showed their sandals unclasped, like really basically. And it's like petroglyphs here and there. You can find them all over.
You're trying to say God? You trying to say God wanted to give Saudi Arabia to the Jews? If he wanted that, he didn't do a very good job delivering it to them.
Well, no, I'm saying it's just part of the narrative at that time.
Okay, so I'm pretty. I don't know, but Proto-Hebrew sounds like a completely spurious term for one. Okay, because Hebrew is quite a late language. So and they know that the previous or the Canaanite language and the Phoenician
it may not be Proto. I may be wrong on that. It's an old form of Hebrew.
That's the first thing, and then the 12 standing stones. That's dubious in itself, okay? Because of course, stones. What is a standing stone, right? That's really difficult to tell. That's the second thing, and then the third thing. This David Reffenberg guy. I think it's been debunked fairly seriously by the consensus of archaeology that he's not exactly qualified or representative of the field as a whole. So that's what I'm saying about the confirmation bias. It seems like the people that will advocate that this is all genuine archaeology all have a strong confirmation bias towards this being the truth, and they're a very small minority. So again, maybe you're right.
Like flood geologists.
Maybe they're right, but the consensus of archaeology, these archaeologists, which are qualified and experts in that particular field, which is biblical archaeology, they would tend to disagree, I think, with that guy's interpretation.
Yeah, they haven't even looked at it, though. They just opened up Saudi to the west recently. And Israel Finkelstein, the head of the Israeli Antiquity Department, one of the most famous archaeologists in the world, and he's works for them. He's a Jew. They told him they wanted him to look at the site, and the quote is basically, "No, I'm not even going to look at it. I know the Exodus is a fairy tale. I'm not even going to look at it." That was his attitude. So whatever, fine.
One. But I'm saying this guy wrote a book some time ago about this. This is not a new discovery, not recent. Okay, and the book was written. People looked at it. People went out, did the research, and decided that the consensus decided that this wasn't genuine archaeology, and in fact, this guy wasn't in fact qualified.
I think that might be a different thing, because I've never heard that, and I've looked at this a lot on this particular section. You'd have to put something in the chat for me to look at. I'm going to find something. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll see what I can do. I mean, I know this name because this appeared on British television.
And the thing is,
2 biblical archaeologists debunked it almost straight away. But anyway.
The thing is, for this story, not only is the evidence dubious for it, but it just doesn't pass the smell test, and that is to say that we're told that these Hebrews, that they crossed the Red Sea, God rescued them from Egypt, and then Moses goes up on the mountain. He's up there a little bit too long, so they just decide to melt a bunch of gold together and make an idol to worship. What could go wrong with that? I mean, they already know God has no problem killing people who do things he doesn't want to do, and surprise, surprise, he killed a bunch of them after that. I mean, this is just not a very believable story. It's that people aren't this dumb. I mean, Christians today have never seen God commit miracles or do miraculous things, and yet they don't just go and worship other gods or just melt a bunch of gold together and start worshiping it. And I don't think people back then were that gullible or that dumb too.
Not to go back to divine hiddenness, but Yahweh was in on the action back then. I think
he was doing everything.
Jamie might have lagged out, but he'll if he comes back, he can. Here he comes. Welcome back.
There he is.
But Jamie, I was just saying not to go back completely to divine hiddenness, but to go completely back to divine hiddenness. Why does it seem like he was doing all this stuff back then? Like, we're reading the Bible. For me, even though I went to Hebrew school, this is really eye-opening to read all this stuff. And he was a main character. Like in the Old Testament, it was like Joseph, Jacob, and Yahweh. Like, we're on an adventure together. And it's like, we just...
I mean, what happened when the guy, when he took something out of somewhere a little bit too fast for Yahweh's liking, and Yahweh just came in and killed him?
Are you talking about when they grabbed the ark and it was because it was going to fall over, and the two sons of Aaron? Or which part are you talking about?
No, we're not down there yet. We are at, I think, Genesis
43, something
39
like that.
or 40, when a guy refuses to impregnate his brother's widow. And he spills his seed on the ground, and God just comes out there and just kills him after killing the guy before.
I had never even heard atheists or theists talk about this. A guy pulls out of a woman, and God kills him. Like, he just slays him at where he stands. It is the most random thing. I was like, what am I reading?
I have an answer if you really want it. I mean, I've thought about this.
Okay.
I've never even heard about it till last month or so please.
So yeah, it sounds crazy. I get it, but so if the way I come to understand it is basically from a Christian perspective, obviously, that like Paul says that all this was planned. I think God knew what he was going to do from the very beginning, but I think people still made the choices they make, and God had a plan to do something about it. And so most of the Old Testament seems really crazy, like, because there's like a theocracy, and God has to accomplish to get the Israelites to a certain place in a certain land to accomplish basically Calvary. So all these things, like when it comes to, say, like the spilling of the seed thing, perhaps it was the idea is that for one, they're under theocracy and they like understood things and saw things that we don't see today. So God's going to be like really strict, and so to disobey certain things that are have certain necessity, there's going to be like severe consequences, because essentially he calls Abraham and then the 12 tribes because he's trying to basically get Christ born to accomplish Calvary. So if you take that seriously, you look at these things and you can see how they connect. You know, like certain people maybe have to, I mean, this is just speculation, okay? But the idea is like he has to get them in the land in a certain way. Certain people have to, you know, the genealogies have to go a certain way, etc., to fulfill what he's promised or foretold or whatever. And that's a whole nother can of worms, but that's the idea. So for me, that's how
I mean, I don't think you can come up with a better defense. You know, it's I don't think anybody could come up with a much better defense to it than that. You know, it is what it is.
It seems very random. Maybe maybe he knew. Maybe he had a reason.
It's part of his plan.
I feel like
the only way to accomplish the the reversal of the fall, basically, and that required to get Jesus born, essentially, and it had to happen in a certain way because if God doesn't fulfill His word in what He said, then that makes Him a liar, and God can't lie. That's a really important concept. It's basically like
and yet God lies again and again.
I always find that a weird claim that God can't lie. That feels like a personal relationship thing. Like, no, my partner can't lie. It's like, really? They can't lie?
Well, when you're God,
the power.
You don't think that makes sense?
No, I feel like if you're God, you should be able to lie with ease. I feel like
do the Muslims.
Are able to,
I have. If God can't lie, I can
understand it.
I can provide evidence. I can provide evidence where God lies.
He sends lying spirits. He sends lying spirits, but He never does it Himself. He allows it when they're disobeying Him. He allows a lying spirit to be sent, but God Himself never lies. Yeah, please show me where.
Let's go to hold on. One of my personal favorites of Jesus specifically telling a lie is hold on, I gotta find it. I got pages of
just while you're doing that, I found the name.
Matthew chapter 18, verses 19 and 20.
Which book?
Well, I'm using the it's Matthew chapter 18.
Okay.
Chapter 18, verses 19 and 20. I have it specially marked amongst my notes because it's one of my personal favorites.
Yeah,
say that one more time again. You said Matthew what?
Matthew 18, verses 19 and 20.
Jamie, just look inside in the private chat and you'll get the guy's name. He's a self-taught scholar.
In my Bible it says, "Again I say to you, if two of you agree on earth about anything they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven." It does not say by His will. It says whatever you ask. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. And yet here I am, post-op transgender, after entire congregations praying for me to be cured of being transgender. Jesus lied.
I suppose you could say that, but I mean, if you take it literally, I suppose that sounds like a lie. Like He's going to show up, you mean? Or that He's going to do whatever you want? I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, it says if 2 of you agree on earth about anything they ask, it's very literal. It will be done. And it even confirms it in another chapter where He talks about even moving mountains. Let me see here. Is it 21? Let me see.
Yeah, that's where the apologists are going to come in and say that the people, they don't lack the faith, because if they just had a little bit of faith, they could move a mountain, but they just don't have enough faith.
It's Matthew 21, verses 21 and 22. And Jesus answered them, "Truly I say to you, if you have faith and never doubt," and you're going to tell me all those hundreds of people lacked in their faith and had doubt.
None of them had enough faith, yeah.
You will not only do what has been done to the fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, "Be taken up and cast into the sea," it will be done. And whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive if you have faith. And these people have a lot of faith. Believe me.
Talking about when Jesus had that conversation and encounter with the fig tree. Yeah.
And so I saw Simos have a question. Also, Ryan, if you have any questions or you want to say anything, feel free. And then I want to
He's
bring
been
up
quiet for a while.
Yeah. Hey, we welcome you on board and just listen to the conversation. I'm just happy more Theists in here. Theists, I know we talk.
She doesn't bite.
I know. I don't bite unless you're into that thing, in which case, okay. And in fact, speaking of biting and Midnight Ranting, come on by. Are Theists justified in believing in God? The link is in the channel or in the chat and pinned if you would like to join our live stream.
I mean, I can't believe we had one of the preeminent physicists of our day just in here a few minutes ago.
Angela,
yeah.
Simos, did you want to say something before I bring up a question?
Well, not on that topic. I was going to just go back and just point out that
sure.
Things. Firstly, it's Benno Rothenberg.
Is he the guy who researched the Sinai Peninsula?
Indeed, yes.
Okay.
And this was in the 70s and 80s, I believe, or 80s. So it's, this is not new knowledge. That's the point I'm pointing out there. And I'm not saying that everything that he talks about doesn't have some justification for, right? I'm sure that he's found some interesting archaeological evidence. I'm just saying that the conclusions he draws from those from that evidence, the inferences he makes, don't seem particularly justified to me personally, having looked at some of it. I don't know all of it, so to say that he's definitely wrong, I wouldn't say. But the link you just posted there, I would also say, is the kind of thing which I find dubious. Okay, obviously, you get coral formations which come in weird shapes and sizes. You only got to go to Australia to realise that. And so, I would actually like to see that coral taken up and then x-rayed and analysed properly in order to find that there are, in fact, something at the centre of it. At least, if not absence of something at the centre to show that, in fact, coral grew around that particular, particular wheels or axles, etc., etc. So, I'm a little dubious in that respect of the link you've posted. But I'm not saying that everything he said was necessarily wrong or he didn't find anything. That's not my point. My claim is that the inferences that he draws from the evidence that he did find is a stretch to say it proves the Bible.
I don't think it. Are you talking about the Benno guy, or what I posted? Because the one I posted is different. It's not in the Sinai Peninsula. That's the thing. That would have to be the Western Finger.
Okay.
But I posted another video that has like a really quick overview of the sites that are once you're into Saudi. There's more. It's just like a quick interview and where he goes over the highlights of it.
Sure.
But I mean, you can just follow that evidence from there.
I personally don't think that story is. I think the story in the Old Testament is confused. I think it's a made-up story in general. The evidence that a large number of people migrated into that particular area in Canaan is just fictional. So I think that's the first thing. There's not a lot of evidence in the destination. And then as for leaving Egypt, right? Well, I don't think that can be really demonstrated very easily, as the kind of evidence that we do have for slaves in Egypt of Canaanite descent are only in northern Egypt, not in southern Egypt, which would be the likely exit place if you were talking about people going into the Sinai Desert. So again, I'm just not convinced that somebody could get lost on the way across, around the Mediterranean, right? You've got the sea right there. So
just look at some of the stuff I posted because you'll be surprised, I think. And
sure. I'm willing to keep an open mind, but I'm just telling you some of the reasons why I'm skeptical right now, because the story doesn't make any sense to me. The biblical story doesn't make any sense to me. And it certainly doesn't correlate with anything to do with Egyptian history.
And give me a second. I'm trying. I just had the quote. I think I have a question for you, Jamie. Just give me 1 second. Well, it was basically asking, why does God need to kill to accomplish his goals? That was the basic question.
What date is that, Jamie? 1440 BC? Is that the date for the Exodus?
Sorry, yeah, that's the one I think I'm pretty convinced of, because for one, Moses the third was probably like the height of power in that period, and so that's likely when God would have done that. And there's some evidence. There's issues with the dating for either date, but one of the main things people miss is, for instance, like unlike most young Earth creationists, I pay attention to some of the scholarly stuff and accept it. Like how, like in the narrative, it talks about the city of Ramses. Well, Ramses didn't come to like the 1200s or whatever BC, and so a lot of people who take the Bible super literally want to say, well, it says Ramses, and it couldn't have been Ramses until Ramses, changed the name of the city, because he went around changing all the monuments to his name or whatever. But I think that the Bible was got reorganized during the history of the Israelites, and so the scribes probably changed place names so that their contemporary audience knew which city was being referred to by geography, and so names could get changed to be more meaningful or understood by the reader at their time. So just because it says Ramses in the text doesn't mean it had to be that date. That's just an example. But
I think the theist claim is that this was written around 1200 BC by Moses, whereas, of course, the secular researchers would say it was several centuries after that. But
right, there's different proposals. I believe Moses wrote it, but I believe scribes or whatever you want to call it, or at different points, it could have been organized and such, and then things like the city names, etc., could have been changed to help make it more understandable. I don't think that's bad. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that.
Did you see the question that Amy just posted?
I don't see anything.
She just had it up a second ago.
Bible Burner writes, could God not have accomplished his will without killing people? Is he that impotent?
Oh,
It
sorry.
Wouldn't have been as fun.
I think he kills only when he has to. So I don't think God likes to kill people.
Isn't that a limitation on God?
Well, he could. I'm not saying he couldn't. I'm saying he wouldn't, because I don't think God's like that. So what you think is like God being terrible, I look at it as God. Most of the time when groups are said to be killed, for instance, like in the Promised Land, it says like God waited until their iniquity was filled up, or until so they were warned for like some cases hundreds of years before they went in and killed them. And so it's kind of like now, where before Christ returns, that's what's going to happen, and people are called to tell people to repent, etc., and be saved. And it was like that then too. Like it says, Noah preached to all the people to tell them destruction was coming. Like I said, Methuselah's name was a prophecy, and they didn't care. And Christ uses that as a picture for the end times too, as far as a parallel. People are saying, come, be reconciled to God, and people reject it, and it'll happen again. I don't think God wants that to happen. I don't think he wants to do it, but he will for the sake of the elect, or for a sinless world, or whatever, how that works. And that's the whole gospel. The good news is like eternal life without suffering anymore. So that's how I see it.
But he couldn't like Thanos snap like all the people into being good instead of like flooding them and drowning everyone?
Well, making them good, I think my theodicy is that God chose to give free will, essentially, and so because he wants you to choose on your own accord, because who wants to marry a robot?
I don't. First of all, I just started reading the Bible like this, but I do not see the words free will anywhere in the Bible. So I don't know where
So you're only got
they get this concept from. I don't even know
and then
how
when
it's a
everybody
Christian
gets
concept.
when everybody gets to heaven, nobody will want to do anything but worship God. No one will want to sin or anything. So free will is just a temporary thing. Then once you get there, you'll just become a zombie.
I have an answer to that.
And what he did was take away people's free will. He drowned them. Isn't that taking away people's free will?
No, he gave them time to repent. They were preached to, and there was room for them on the boat. And I
still
think
killed them.
My answer to the whole poofing thing that Pine Creek talks about, that everybody jumped on board with, dude, the flood was so like catastrophic. And I mean, I think the people were probably, it was like poofing them out of existence. They were probably just instantly killed.
It was probably way worse. Like, it was everyone all over the planet was drowning, dying, suffering, all at the same moment. The worst anguishing pain that they've ever experienced.
I think more like they were killed instantly. Probably all of them or most of them.
I don't know.
It's not like rising
evidence. But wasn't it just raining 40 days? Like, it couldn't have. It wasn't just like sloosh, or was it just like
the water came from the inside the earth too?
Yeah,
remember Nephilim freeze hypothesis that the craters on the moon are from the water bursting out of the crust and hitting the moon.
There's actually evidence for that, but
no, I love that one. Luna Bukaki, he calls it. I love it.
But it doesn't make it, I don't think there's evidence for it, but it doesn't make it moral. I always say, let there be evidence for Yahweh. Prove that he's real. I probably won't worship him, but at least it would make me a theist. It would probably make me join the quote-unquote other side of whatever the Satan is. But at least I'd believe.
I'd be like, man, he's got a lot to account for.
No.
Let me ask you this. Is it ever just to kill people? Can you ever think of a reason why it would be better to kill some people for the sake of the other people?
But
is it ever good to go take out terrorists because they're like murdering people? Can you imagine that?
But save their young daughters as your sex slaves?
The answer is yes. Yes. Sometimes, I mean, war happens. If not, war would be illegal. We probably should. But let me ask you a question in reverse. Is there a moment you could think where you would drown everyone, like even the children, the women, everybody, everyone,
the kitties and the kangaroos,
the cats, every pet is going to drown. They're all going to suffocate.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. They must have been pretty terrible.
Oh God!
The cats were terrible.
That's not possible, though. People want it to make God evil so bad because God forbid if he was not evil and he had to kill those people and be. It says God was long suffering, not willing any to perish. That's what the Bible says about that, about the flood.
Isn't this a sinful world? Do you look at the earth now?
It seemed like a failure. If he was trying to make a good world, it seems pretty messed up now.
Well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's like either God is giving people their freedom to choose and do what they want, and then when that doesn't work out, you give them crap for not being happy or for not being able to save everybody. It's like, which way do you want it? Do you want them to not give you freedom, or do you want freedom? It's like, it seems kind of like wishy-washy.
If freedom amounts to an eternity in hell, then what's the point?
And freedom to me doesn't even equate in it. I just want the evidence. Prove he's real, and I'll believe, or not him, or anyone, any theist, or himself, or herself.
Now, whether you should worship him, that's another conversation. But
that is also another conversation.
At least you wouldn't deny he's real.
If I thought he was evil, I would.
Even the miracle of birth, just how your semen can hit an egg and then create who we are now. And that all just came into existence by accident or whatever is crazy to me.
But can you replace the word miraculous with amazing or awesome? Like, can't it just be the fact that
I don't know, like the other guy, because I battled with this with God a lot and trying to find out who he is, why he doesn't just show up and explode or show the world who he is. The best argument I heard for that is he used to in the Old Testament, and people still didn't. And like the way I see it is like people hear and see what they want to see. Like in America right now, it's 50% like Trump and the other 50% hated it. And there's like two different actual realities on what's really going on. And the
No, I will
Bible even,
say, if I could just interrupt,
yeah.
a quick shout out to all sides of the corner. Just the two main hosts. We have someone who didn't vote for Trump and someone who voted. How can I not point that way? One of the ways. And James probably voted. So it is interesting times at which we are trying to figure out, we're all trying to figure out reality. That's why I think these terms like woke and red pilled, everyone is trying to figure out what the actual truth is. I think, not disagreeing, just adding that on there.
The red pill's no fun without the blue pill.
Well, my joke is just, you just grab both. You just take both. Okay, see what happens.
Ideas and reality.
The Matrix is such a funny thing. I love the Matrix, and I like the term red pill because in my head it had to deal with solipsism. That was where the original attention was like, take this. Do you want to keep on just being in the dream, or do you want to take this and get the information and be chucked out? But politics for you. But shout out to the Wachowskis.
I thought it had to do with like taking like a whole bunch of hallucinogens to the point where you get like sucked through the vortex that happens on like every hallucinogen if you take enough, and then like
that could be
pop and like all of a sudden like some spirit guide appears before you. For me, last time it was Misha Collins from Supernatural. He's like, "Do you believe I'm real now?" He said, "I'm God. Do you believe I'm real now?" I said, "No, I'm on drugs." And he said, "Doesn't matter." He grabbed me and dragged me through the universe, and I was seeing like neurons and electrons like just all the molecules like pushing and pulling and interacting. And I was listening to some good dubstep, and like I could see the freaking stuff on the screen with the mouth shut. I swear it was crazy.
What were you on?
Dextromethorphan, a very high dose.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Robo tripping.
DMX.
DMX.
Yeah, in high school.
Good old robo tripping.
800 milligrams of pure DMX.
I avoid experiences like that at all costs because you just never know if you're going to come out of it. You don't know if it's going to like rip away everything that you like value, and
I knew a guy who got it straight from the manufacturer in like powder form.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that. I mean, back then it was rare or whatever, but yeah, you'd like wait, you'd like throw up, and then it would go crazy.
Yeah,
anyway.
Well, I didn't throw it, but like I've also done acid. I didn't like acid because I mean, like after 6 hours, it just wipes everything out of your brain, everything you love, everything you're familiar with, like everything that makes you who you are. It just bleaches it out. It's like
I just remember teleporting. That was the only experience. Is I had one of those moments in my dorm room, like the quintessential, like, when are we going to take it? And they're like, it's been 2 hours. Like, you think it's 2 minutes. 2 hours. I'm like, oh, okay. And I ended up in a
microdose.
different thing.
I've also done DMT, been dragged through the universe on that. And that left me with some mysteries because, like everything becomes like orbs of light. And a lot of people try to use that as evidence for God. They call it, it's like, no, it's like, I mean, light exists, like everything's like energy and matter. So just because you see a breakdown where you're perceiving the energy more than the matter, and that's what gives us life, and so.
Did you meet the machine house?
I just want to say, Oz is in the house. Heart you, Oz, and check out Tart Out Live.
Who Jesus is, or Oz himself?
Oh, the pro-lifer Oz, right?
Oz, I've been watching you on the Atheist Roundtable off and on.
Yeah, go check out the Atheist Roundtable. They host great content, great debates, great interviews. And what was I going to say? I used to, not to get too far off topic, but one of my roommates used to be a DMT cook. She wasn't a great one, but she used to trade DMT for other things. And It was a very very interesting experience. It's the other half of the reason that I'm obsessed with consciousness is because
when you get studied in like chemistry and physio, like a little, you get to understand physics. Having a psychedelic trip is so much different when you know what's going on.
Yeah.
And you understand a bit about neuroscience. Yeah.
Maybe being epileptic, maybe it's a little different even then. When you're able to perceive things differently to know what it's like when certain parts of your mind are working right and some aren't.
Yeah. Like when you go into a seizure, like, I mean, everything just starts to short circuit out. It's very painful, and then when you come out of it, sometimes you come back immediately. Other times I've had where it's like a slow boot, where it's like first I get like basic awareness, I can't think of my name or my birthday. Then I start to remember my name. Then everything, all the familiarizations kind of come flooding back in.
See, you're just like my dad. My dad has. I think we lost Jamie again. I normally say when it happens to James is Satan recruits James, but I don't know if I could say that.
I've gone up to
maybe it was Yahweh. Yeah.
Yahweh takes and he gave him back.
And he gave back. Thank you, Yahweh. Thank you.
I have a bad connection. You still have seizures?
If I stop taking Keppra, if I don't take it, I start, like, I've been able to cut down to like 1 pill a day. Like, I used to have to take 2 a day, and I've been trying to kind of get off everything and focus more on just being healthy and trying to overcome whatever's causing it. But it's just I seem to just have a like light sensitivity. Like, bright days are painful even with the medication. And yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'll be praying for you. And I mean that in a nice way, but I just want to tell you that.
We understand.
Get in line. I'm 40. I've had people praying for a long time, but I have been doing better. Like I got off I was on Effexor for a long time, which is an antidepressant. I mean, it was useful like when I was locked up, and then like I got out, and it was just turned into a suicide attempt because just. Like getting out of prison.
That's a potent
neighborhood
one.
Watch people like screwing with you the second you walk out, and getting off their radars took a while. And
yeah, I know how that is.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're doing better.
Can you drive, Megan?
I could probably get my license back, but I can't even afford a vehicle right now. So
I understand. I eventually caught up with me because I didn't report it or anything. It was just, I guess, the hospital reported it because I had a seizure on I-95, and the hospital must have reported it. And so they're like, "Hi, you need to come in and give us your license, and then you need to wait a year, and then you can start driving again." I was like,
God bless America.
I don't believe in miracles, but as far as seizure medication goes, Keppra is like a miracle drug because I mean it gets rid of the seizures.
My dad takes.
Yeah, it gets rid of the seizures, but it doesn't mess with me in any other way. Like, it's not like Dilantin or that kind of stuff.
The side effects
minimal side effects.
Minimal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it just gets rid of the auras. That's all it does. And so some days I've had
praise Big Pharma.
Oh, and if anyone's listening, the aura, it's not a spiritual term. It's they use it as a scientific term. An aura is the onset of a seizure. It's that things start to get a little freaky, and they call that the aura.
Yeah, well, and it includes visual auras. It's not like auras around people. It's like light distortion in your vision. It's like if you look at a low res monitor and like
you hear things,
or you see. I never hear things. I just get visuals. I get blotches in my vision of like flashing colors, like contrasting, and it's not pleasant though. It's very like migraine-ish. And it can be nauseating. I've vomited before because of it. So,
also, Megan, you'll appreciate. Well, all gamers will appreciate this. They say at once you hit 30, you get a random debuff. So, things happen.
That almost makes sense. I was 29 when I had my surgery.
Really?
Everything
See?
went downhill after that.
We all get a...
Yeah. I was up. Just about turned 30 when I got out of the hospital.
Came closer to 40, but yeah. It's an act
2. That's okay. We live in a good time. I mean, I'm glad. I'm very lucky. I have it under control. My dad only has a seizure. Like, I have it completely under control. He only has one like once every year, if that now. So he is basically and he only has his while sleeping. That's the other interesting thing. There's 2 different types. There's people who have it while they're asleep, which is my dad. He does not have waking seizures. And he had his from an accident. I don't know if accidents can get passed on via sex, but there you go. And mine don't. And just like you, Megan, because it seems when it starts out as a grand mal, it seems that my dad has to piece together who he was. He comes back and he has to remember his name. Who am I? Yeah. Oh, you're my wife. You're my child, right? Child. Okay. And so it is interesting. I come right back. When I come back, it is like I passed out. That's why we had to figure it out.
I've had both situations where I've had ones where I came back right away. I've had more severe ones where it took me longer to come back. That was more back before Keppra. I was on clonazepam for my seizures because for whatever reason with the effects of it, because stress seems to be a factor in what causes mine, and so it was like really beneficial, but at the same time it was really addictive. So I was like, eating them like Smarties. Then I'd always be running out, and every time I run out, I'd end up having a grand mal seizure, and it'd be like even worse than without just normal. And but I've had a couple that messed me up pretty good. I mean, I had ones, where it was almost more like a stroke. It changed things about my behavior. Yeah.
My heart.
But having firsthand experience with stuff like that, just really, it's hard to believe that consciousness exists as anything besides just within the brain.
Hey, KOC.
KOC. I mean, I won't go into my whole model. I'll just say I am an advocate for my own model that I want to put forward because
the Newman model.
The Newman model of consciousness. Yeah,
is it monism?
Is it
I
monism?
agree with what Cheryl said.
No. Maybe I'd have to look it up.
I think consciousness is all in the brain for humans anyway.
Yes.
And it's not just like one thing. It's a collection of things going on in the brain that accumulates together into like our focus point,
So many Christians want to deny that, but I see it as what the Bible teaches, and I also see it as a wonder of the physical creation. And they say the brain is like the most complex object in the universe, I guess.
I would say it's pretty cool. I love the brain because I should get my neuron. I have a neuron buddy too. Neurons take 10 times the amount of energy than the cells around them. And so they're just freaking powerhouses. It's also one of the reasons why I think we sleep.
Atheists. Amy Newman can take her brain out. Atheists can do that. She has her brain on her desk.
That's right.
I wanted to be a brain surgeon when I was younger. Real bad.
Really? That'd be cool. I wanted to be a storm chaser, but there's not a lot of money in that.
Yeah, stormtrooper.
Stormtrooper.
I thought you
No, I'm Rebel Alliance. I mean, I can't help it. What's that?
But I'm waiting for just a second.
Oh, and thank you, Bible Burner. It was nice having you guys
Bible
on.
Burner. Yeah,
I've been reading
a couple good questions.
And I heart all you in chat. And everyone watching. Theist, atheist alike.
Megan, I wanted to say too before I get off, like when you earlier said that you started being thankful for all kinds of stuff when you were battling your mental illness and stuff, and I did this exact same thing, so it like really hit home in my process of changing my thinking. And there really is like so many things that we can be thankful in this life. Like even our pain is like a warning mechanism to like get your hand off the stove. Like it's it's just we live in the most amazing world, and with the culture we're living in now, with all the like mainstream media, and just there's tons of hate out there, and yeah, but there's in the real world there's so much beauty and stuff to be thankful for.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And actually, before you go, Brian, because I wanted to ask you a question or two, and then I just had a comment. I get you said you said that it cured a whole bunch, that it actually it seemed to say that it worked, that and I wanted to say, do you think one of the strongest aspects, because it's one of the things I think that the people get the most of, just put the rules all that aside, is the community, is just that life can suck, especially when we're alone or we feel alone. And I think there's just something so empowering about a community, and I think it's part of the. I keep on pointing this way. Pretend James over here. It's part of the reason that James and I do what we do is I want to create, and I feel bad, but the reason why I shared that comment is I want to create a secular place that people can come to and talk about things and get their ideas out and feel like they actually belong. Because I think of all the elements, that we can talk about, I think that is a big need in a human's life. I think there was a question in there, I'm sure, but
so we bring theists on, and we like to listen. We like to listen.
And I have one last comment, but did you want to after that? But did you want to say some response or?
Yeah, like community is awesome. Like we're born to like need and to love other people and stuff. And I think as long as you're making a community where you're not like attacking people, if people have different views and you hate them, as long as they're not like attacking you, physically hurting you and stuff, I don't think you should. I think it's fine. Like if people aren't hurting and doing stuff to other people and they're living the way they want to, as long as they're not taking rights away from other people.
As long as you don't have hate in your heart. I know. I'm doing
so many. Got a million props.
I got all these. Okay. I'm sorry, Brian. But I agree. Not only I'm joking, but I agree with you. I'm gonna share an experience that I think is relatable. Is that we were just talking about all these psychedelics and all this stuff, but I tend to just smoke my little bit of weed, and that tends to keep me at bay. But I did, like I said, in younger years, I was doing all these things, and I had a chance to take ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is basically a DMT drink. It's the same thing, but 6 hours long. And
it's what the natives drink, yeah.
It's exactly. And I would say, even though the cook, she was complaining because she wasn't rolling and all this. So we'll just put her all over there. She was off in like another room. And I had, in my opinion, what they call an ego death, or a rebirth moment, in which I saw a chair in the middle of my living room, and I wrapped my arms around this chair and I started crying. I started crying for hours, and because I could not all the objects around me, I started to realize, were made by other people. It made me realize that just how much effort it takes just to even make my daily life function, the amount of other people just to come together and to make us be successful and happy, functional humans. And I
I almost wound up naked in a park because of something like that.
And it almost feels like you use that word hate. And it's funny because I wasn't allowed to, that was like the only curse word we weren't allowed to use in my household was that word. But it felt literally like the hate drained from me. Not that I was a hateful person, just that it has been so much harder. Like it's you have to struggle to even truly dislike someone on that type of level anymore. And it's been that way ever since. And I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is there actually is a secular version of even a rebirth moment. And then my last point that I wanted to say is you use the word righteous. And that word used to never come up on my radar. But I'm an amateur comedian because they don't pay me money. So I'm starting to really get into comedy, and I came across a gentleman named Patrice O'Neill. And Patrice O'Neill, who isn't with us anymore, he recontextualized the word righteous in a way that wasn't wholly. It's, are you being true to yourself and everyone around you? Are you being righteous? That is, and I have taken that and I've kind of reclaimed that word in my eyes because I try to be righteous. It's not like it's not a specifically a theistic thing, but it is an ideal that I think we should try to be open and honest and kind and love each other. And yeah.
Hey, I salute you. Like, you're having Christians on here, like, talking, like, this is what makes sense in these times. Instead of, and I know, like, when the Christians get their side chat, they talk crazy, like, the atheists, like, nothing came from this, and, there's bickering, but as long as I think it's awesome that you are doing civil conversations with other people, because right now in our culture, that's not really going on.
That's what we try for. We love it.
Yeah,
exactly.
I salute you, all you guys, for doing that.
Well, thank you for coming on, Brian, and being willing to share your views on it.
Yeah.
I subbed you, and I've seen you on Modern Day Debate and stuff. I'll pop back in.
Modern Day Debate. Go check out the other James.
Great channel.
Over at Modern Day
Great
Debate.
Guy.
Yeah,
he's good too.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night, Brian. Thank you so much for being on.
Good night, Brian. See you next time.
Good night, Brian. Okay, I'm also going to take my leave. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Simus.
It's been a
very
pleasure.
good to hear from you.
Did you want to have a closing statement or any last thoughts on your mind?
Not really.
That's okay.
I think I said everything I needed to say about it in the first sentence. So, yeah.
Come back anytime.
I will just say one thing, which is I wish debaters would choose more accurate topics to debate about rather than having general terms in the debate topic, because general terms lead to very boring debates, as is proved many times over. And so when you say justified in believing, you can throw a stone in a pond and you can't miss. Right? Of course, people could be justified to believe virtually anything if it helps them, right? And that's the point, right? So, yeah, does belief in God help you? Yeah, I'm sure it's helped a lot of people in history. I'm sure it helped, at least 3/4 of the world, right? and the rest are just, atheists are such a small group of people compared to the rest of the world that are theists. Who wouldn't say that they're justified in believing there's a God, even if it's false? So it really annoys me, that particular topic. T-Jump had that debate a couple of times, and I went in and had a word with him. And go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
just a shout out to T Jump first of all because he's awesome. And I think I agree with you. I think they do that. I think it's both two things. The vaguity leads to it, but then I think it's intentional. I think they're doing that intentional. Like not all apologists, but many apologists want to argue deism. They don't even want to come close to Christianity. They want to kalam all over the place. They do not want to. I forget which debate we did an after show last time, but the dude didn't say it was Christianity versus atheism. He did not say the word.
That was Darth Dawkins.
Darth Dawkins. He didn't say.
He's not.
Was that Darth Dawkins?
Yeah, he didn't say the word Christian or Jesus until 45 minutes into the debate. I was
Darth Dawkins is not a debater. That's a really bad term to use for Darth. I debated him 4 years ago, something like that, maybe 5 years ago, many times, and he just used to rage quit because he couldn't control the conversation. Right? He can't debate with Jack, right? And by Jack I mean Jack Ainsworth. But anyway, go ahead. Well, I hadn't quite finished in that Tom Jump had a very similar debate on a very similar topic, and I had to go at him for it. He used reasonable. Is it reasonable to believe in God? And what I think is dishonest for atheists to try and take, I believe, right? He has a justification for this, which I disagree with. And I love Tom Jump. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy his debates and stuff. And he has a point in what he made to say. But I think you need to tie down the language in a much stronger way, because then, you're more honest to the debate format, right? Rather than just saying, right, well, in conversation, we will then define our terms and then make the debate, right? Well, that doesn't give the other person the chance to really come in with a full knowledge of what they're supposed to be debating. If two sides come in with a different definition of the words that are in the debate title, and they go, right, well, we'll sort it out when we get there, well, then they're just debating on the fly, and that's not really what debates are about. That's what conversations are about, not debates. So, as a purist in the debate format, normally what would happen is both sides would send their opening statements, right, copied out to each other, right, first. So both sides would know what the other side was going to open with. And then they would just read the debate opening, and then they would start the debate formal, right? And even in some serious debates, like in Cambridge, etc., they won't even do that. They will literally, then send each other rebuttals, and then they'll just read the rebuttals out as well, right? I mean, this is how far you can go down it. But of course, those debates are very specialized. Right? They're very targeted to the subject, and you don't get any wishy-washy 20 minutes of people talking over each other. And that's what I'm kind of arguing and I'm not liking so much in the debates. We call them debates. They're not debates. But these conversations that we're having, right? And I don't mind the conversation thing, but let's just get off this idea that somebody's going to win it, right? Because that's not what happens, right? Especially when you have these generalized topics. So that's my little bugbear. That's my little rant for midnight ranting. And I'll say thank you so much.
Thank you. It makes sense.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree with what you're saying.
Okay, thank you, James.
Come back anytime. Call first.
Thank you, James. I will try to do so. I have subbed to your Discord and your YouTube. Please, everybody, thumbs up, like, subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell.
Oh, thank you. That's very, very nice of you.
So much, in fact, and come back anytime. Come back and rant as much as you want.
I'll try to do that at some point. And also, it's a pleasure to meet you, Megan. Take care now. Bye-bye, everybody.
We don't have a store yet, but go to drdino.com and buy a bunch of his stuff.
I shall buy his creationist DVDs. Buy more Dr. Dino. Dr. Dino. And okay, so we'll probably go on for a little bit longer, but we're getting to my sweet spot.
Yeah, we're coming up.
But it's been good. We got through all my cards, so I'm happy with that. Any other thoughts, Megan, on the debate, or just
Justification for God?
justifications? Yeah, for God.
I don't know. I think that maybe some people are kind of justified until they get into like astronomy and cosmology and anthropology and biology.
Well, it's obvious people in the past were way more justified, people 100 or
they didn't
200
have
years ago.
Yeah, they didn't have the science available that we have today. I mean, anybody who has a desire to learn, and I don't know how anyone could just want to sit around and stay stupid. I mean, it comes to a point where you've just got to look at it and be like, there's no way to turn that into poetry. Like Genesis 1 is like a literal explanation of how things were created, and it's completely wrong. And
well, that's one of the things the theists like to use a lot. They like to go back and say, well, look at all these really smart people in the past. Look at the people who founded all the sciences. They believed in God. They were Christians. So if it's good enough for Isaac Newton, why is it not good enough for you?
Right. And you think like, Isaac Newton, it had to do with the time that he was alive, like it was just kind of a thing of his era. And like, he didn't have the brain of Einstein, and
good night,
Einstein was pretty much an atheist. I mean, not entirely.
I think so.
He was just very focused on the discovery and energy and matter, and he didn't really care about the supernatural. He didn't believe in the supernatural. I was reading about it just like the other day. The God that he attributed to is kind of like almost like a deistic God, but not really. He just wasn't into it. He didn't care. He didn't want to worry about that. He's kind of like Rick.
Thing,
Yeah, kind of like Rick Sanchez. It's not important, So that's what I think.
He was doing math equations and solving relativity, and whether there's a God behind it or all not.
Didn't matter. Yeah, but he have a profound understanding of that it's just not important.
You're on mute again, Amy.
All right. And then, so with that, then I'm going to bring it to you, James. Wrap us up on the subject, and then I'll just bring us on out.
Well, I want to thank Megan, thank Brian, everybody for coming in chat, Otangelo, everyone in the chat room, Titan Uranus, even tighter, KOC Champ, all the great people in there. Who Robert was in there. I saw Aunt Jer, and it was a really good discussion, and for a lackluster debate, for a very uneventful debate overall. They were tasked with coming and providing justification, but they, as so often happens, brought very little to the table, and but it's always nice to watch them try.
Yeah, like with Brian, like one thing I'd say is, if AA is working for a person and that's helping them, and they're pretty much heteronormative and have a family, and it's just something simple that can work for them. That's hey, great, but
it's just the forced thing. As long as it's not forced or this court ordered and it has to be AA. I mean, if someone chooses to go on there on their own free volition, I guess that's where the opposition comes from, is just there's been certain aspects to where, with the court and stuff as far as I went. But I wanted if it worked for him, then good. Because like you were saying, all that matters really is the outcome. We just want people to be happy.
Right. Well, it's just being able to have that realization that I will allow myself, to, have those things from the Serenity Prayer, rather than saying, God, is, I allow myself to have the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Because sometimes we have to stop and think that, are we allowing ourselves to do good things in our life? Plain and simple.
So
we get our own way. We're not just one person in our brain. We're several people compiled into one. So we gotta watch out for that.
So
I wonder.
While it can have.
It
can have positive aspects and elements in people's lives, and you don't want to take that away from them. if it helps people and whatnot, but it does come with a lot of other baggage too, and a lot of it's not so nice and pretty. And I guess a lot of people, they can kind of take the good and leave the bad, and if that works for them, and if you just a lot of them, they just don't really care if it's true. They just like it so much and it works for them.
Yeah.
But then there are people who actually just can't get over wondering and searching to find out if what they believe is actually true, and you can't just accept a placebo answer. And unfortunately, a lot of us do fall into that category, and that we might want to believe, but we just can't bring ourselves to believe when we're not convinced, and we look out for evidence, and we just don't see enough to convince us.
Right. Well, yeah, it offers that kind of faith healing blammo placebo, but that doesn't work for everybody. Like, they only have like a 5% success rate. I mean, what happens to the other 95% of people that get caught up in that?
Well, like God said, the narrow is the path, and few there be that find it. So I guess they go to hell.
Yeah, the rest, or jail, or homeless shelter.
Well, they go to jail here, and then God will send them to hell afterwards.
Yeah, or they're like me, and they finally get out, and then strive desperately to get educated and learn to understand things better, and bring things into your life. Get a pet, get things that you can love and cherish. Like if you don't have kids, then you gotta get things like I have a cat that I love like a child. So
it's the human condition. We all have struggles, and we all have our demons and the things that we wrestle with in our lives, and we're all struggling just to get through it.
And there's good evidence. Your brain, I think, it has similar mappings to the same things that an actual parent has. I don't think it's the exact same as like a gene child, but it's the same types of chemicals and chemistry going on, and that's why we treat them like they're our babies, because our brain's saying they're our babies.
Oh yeah, like definitely, like just having things. Even it's the same things they teach you in rehab and AA. You got to have things in your life that you value, and. The problem.
And at the I hate to cut you off just 1 second, Megan. At the cross, we are getting ready to wrap up. Did you want to come join us and say something, or if not, that's okay. And we're gonna have plenty of more fun streams coming up in the days ahead.
Yeah, subscribe and then come in and
come join
and pwn us next time.
Come join our Skeptic Bible studies. I say this every time. I was worried it was going to be really dry because it's the Bible, and there's a lot of this guy was named, guy was named, but there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. We make it fun. We have a good time. But yeah,
we love the Bible now.
We love the Bible. What were you saying, Megan? I'm sorry.
Were you still doing the Discord tonight, or?
I believe she didn't want to do that.
Absolutely. So that will. You know what? I think that's going to be our new because I'm trying to think like what we could do to be more interactive, and the atheist experience, how they handle is they go on Discord. And so I was like, maybe for the 30 minutes after the stream ends, maybe we should just go on Discord and do like chat or community there if anyone wants to come in there, and then call it a night.
Yeah, that sounds good.
What do you think, James? Sound good?
I'm good for it. I am down.
Let's do it.
Down to go to Discord and talk about the Bible.
Yes, and Titan has been such an awesome.
Titan is great.
So first of all, shout out to all my chat mods, but also shout out to Titan for being such an awesome, and Math Pig for being such awesome Discord.
Is Math Pig in there in the house?
No, but he
Reed
helped up with it.
There was another one too, something X.
Oh, is Mark Reed, Matt?
Mark Reed is in the house.
Mark Reed. Yep.
Robert, Brandon Bello.
Don't worry, I got everybody. So
she's got it all.
Don't worry. So is that
Titan Uranus?
Is that it, guys? You think that all to wrap it up? Have we gotten our thoughts on our midnight ranting? Our theist
Jim just got in. Jim, you just got in.
That's okay. Hi, Jim. Woohoo!
Hey, Jim.
I feel bad. You just got here, but it's getting close to the 3-hour mark, which is my sweet spot.
It's gone by quick.
I don't know if you do. Do you do Discord, Jim? I'm just getting into it.
Me too.
Woohoo! Hi.
Well, thank you guys.
Hi.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay. He says he's gonna join the Discord. I'm so new at all this stuff. I feel so bad. If you've sent me a message on Discord and I didn't reply in like 2 weeks, I'm so sorry. Okay.
Even James Coons has trouble with Discord, and he's amazing. So.
I know. Well, you could hear. He says he's not a boomer. He's joking when he says that, but I feel like a boomer. Yeah, I feel like I'm a boomer. I feel like I'm a boomer when I'm on there, but I'm getting there. Exactly. And okay, so with that, I hope you all had an awesome night as we put Thea's. Yes, in fact, you know what I will do? Hold on 1 second.
If anybody wants to join us over there.
It is now pinned, so I just pinned Titan. I just pinned Uranus to the chat.
Pin the tail on the Titan, or the link on the Titan.
Exactly. And so with that, I want to thank James W., Alonzo, Megan, Simos, Brian, Jamie, Otangelo, Donald, At the Cross, Titan Uranus, Bible Burner, Robert, Dog, Brandon, Red Fang, Anturg, Johnny V, Mark, Oz, and KOC Champ.
Spooky Bed Hair.
Spooky Bed Hair. Spooky. I hope you all had an awesome night as we put theism on trial in this midnight ranting. Are theists justified in believing in God?
The verdict is no.
That's okay. We still heart you, theists. We love you. If you want to see the original debate that inspired this conversation, you can at the link below in the description. Remember, folks, feel free to like and subscribe and hit that all bell icon so you can join us for live stream events. I'm Amy Newman. I heart you all, and I'll see you on the next episode of Skeptic Ball Z.
Good night, guys.